to Brave Owned Acres. This is episode 3 of Between the Lines, and today we're going to talk about homestead user manuals. I initially came up with the idea, started thinking about it prior to leaving the States and traveling to South Korea. And I ran out of time. I was trying to do a lot in a short amount of time, and I just wasn't able to complete it. And in addition, since then, I've had quite a few phone calls and FaceTimes and so on and so forth, trying to help the wife and kids fix some things or find things around the house, or do things around the homestead. So, and I know there's a lot of people in this space that are like that part-time homesteader, farmsteader, whatever. And then some of us, of course, have to travel, whether that's for leisure, for work. It's going to happen. And I know a lot of us like to say that we're designing a life that you don't need a vacation from, but you're still going to occasionally want to go to the beach or to the lake or the mountains or whatever. And having something like this would be helpful, whether it's a family member or friend or someone you hire to come take care of your homestead. During that short period, which I would deem like a weekend, maybe you only need someone to stop by, once a day to make sure, like if you have the automatic, water feeders and things like that set up, just to make sure that there hasn't been any failures. And then the next would kind of the mid category, which is, a week plus, to 3 weeks, maybe shy of a month. And then in my category, like the 6 to 12, months category, where you're leaving this behind for your family so that they have some tools at their disposal to figure out what's going on and try to fix it as best they can, or take care of it for that matter, just maintenance. So how do we prepare for that? We've already talked about automation. Redundancies is another part. If you're using automation, and especially if you're going to rely on it and not have someone check on it, redundancies can help prevent that full system failure, because automation can absolutely fail you, and it will. And so having that is expensive though, because you're usually buying multiple. So that may not be in the budget right now. So this manual can kind of help us along there. So the areas we're going to talk about are mechanical systems, / utilities, internet, and security, because I think they tie directly together. In today's modern world, if you're off grid and you don't use any of that, then that doesn't apply. But this is a manual for you to develop for your situation, how, where you live in the country, what type of livestock, what type of homestead you have, what are the things you have, all those variables are unique to your location. So these are just some thoughts and ideas, and I highly encourage anyone who has any other ideas of things that should be added to a manual like this, just put them in the comments down below. Let's start a conversation. Livestock, equipment, gardens, plants, etc. Right? So to get started with mechanical systems, those are your power, your water, your gas, your solar, if that's how you get your power, or wind even for that matter, if you have wind turbine or something on your property. So power, those the circuit breaker panels, the little schematics, the little labels in there. If they're correct, great. If you checked them, because sometimes they're not correct or they're poorly labeled, they don't really give you a good idea of what that's for. So going through and correctly labeling those, I've already had one conversation with my son, talking him through resetting one that had popped. Those are a useful tool to have. Water, where's the shutoff? That's you get a water line break in the house. If you don't know where the shutoff is, it could cause a lot of damage in a fairly short amount of time. So if you got filter systems, how to maintain those or change the filters if necessary, water softeners, those type of things, adding the salt to those and whatnot. It's all unique for you. So gas, whether you got propane or natural gas, or if it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply. Where is the shutoff for that? And, or how do I call someone to get it refilled if you got propane, if you're not on a schedule or that type of thing. Solar could be, fairly complex with some of the systems involved with that. A lot of that can be monitored online if you have it set up that way. But maintenance, maybe cleaning the panels if they're not on the roof, depending on if you have a roof mount system, that might get a little more complex where you're hiring somebody to come out and clean them, depending on your roof type. That'll move us into the internet and security, right? One thing I really wish I would have done, and I probably will while I'm home on leave or vacation here in a few months, the VPN router. So you have remote access. And there's other ways to set up remote access, but I personally wouldn't, I'm no internet security expert, but I would not trust another system like that. It would allow me to access and monitor some of these other things. Having important passwords available for, now I wouldn't, obviously someone I hire would not give them passwords to stuff, but I would, I would allow, obviously your family members having those important, whether they're saved in the computer, or you're using some sort of app or software to do like a master thing, how to access that stuff, especially like how to access your routers, is a significant one that could be helpful for a family member. Security systems, right? If you got, an actual monitored or internal security system with like door alarms, things like that. Cameras, I think, have a huge benefit, just not even just for the security aspect, but like to be able to remote monitor your, say your livestock, having one into the chicken coops, or had it, one out where you got your pigs or your cows or your goats or whatever they may be, so you can see it remotely and see what's going on. Also kind of helps you, like if you are hiring somebody to double check that they're actually stopping by once a day, like that you paid them to do. If they know they're there, that might make them a little more honest about what they're doing. But just one little security thing I would add in there, and like I said before, I'm no expert on this, but I would not, if you have the Ring and some of these other cloud-based setups, the privacy is, I wouldn't trust it. There's like the data there that goes in it is owned by whoever, and they can use it for, I could go on forever about this, but there's, I prefer buying cameras that are their own security cameras that you subscribe and pay for, a separate service. It's not that, or you can get even the ones that have the SD card slots in them, and then you can set up a remote app and remote access to where you can look at it on your phone, and you can look at the recordings on the SD card. It's not being stored in the cloud. Of course, I'm sure there's some security concerns there too for someone that's really wants to get access to your information, hacker or whatnot, but we're talking basic stuff, basic privacy here. Satellites, if you have satellite internet or TV connections, knowing that, like, if you in the wintertime, if you live somewhere where it snows, that they're gonna have to clean the panel off to prevent from losing connection, right? All right, so moving on to livestock. As I mentioned earlier, automatic waters and feeders are great for that short term, that weekend, maybe a little bit longer. However, critical times of year, summer and whatnot, you would really obviously want someone to check at least once a day to verify that, like, something didn't go wrong with the water and all the water drained out. And you got pigs, and they like to go over there and just open it up and try to make a mud bath. Next thing you know, they're out of water. So that could be really important in the summer months to definitely have someone go check. And if you don't, that system doesn't automatic refill. Like for our pigs, we have it's a 55-gallon plastic barrel. It's a lot of water for 2 small pigs. So it lasts a pretty long time, as long as, like I said, they do like to go over there and try to get a mud bath going on there. So it has to be checked. Food storage, the feed storage, right? Enough to get through whatever period of time there is. This obviously doesn't really apply for the long term, the 6 months, unless you got a lot of space to store a lot of feed. And then labeling the feed. So obviously, if it's in separate containers, that the person knows what type of feed it is and what it's for, and even you can even put the daily quantities for whatever animal that might be, just to help like that quick. Oh yeah, that's right. I get 1 scoop of this, and 2 scoops of this to this, whatever it is. Treatment schedules like deworming and stuff like that. If that's something you have to worry about over that period of time that animals do for its dewormer or whatnot. And then fences, I'd say, but electric fences mainly because we all know if you have them, especially if they're like ground close to the ground, not like just the top wire on something, you need to trim with a trimmer to trim the grass down, and how to turn it off. If you like the one we have is a solar one, occasionally wiping off the solar panel from all the dust that builds up on it, that type of thing. Equipment, this is obviously just like your homestead could be, a long list. It could be, everything up to tractors and whatnot, but, typical stuff, mowers and trimmers, if they're gas or electric, the maintenance on them, short term, that's usually should be covered. Long term, that might be a factor, or you might just be, hey, this month, take these in to the service shop, and they'll get it done. They'll do the maintenance on them for you. The variables are vast. Fuels, having fuel stored for those. In short term, that's really easy. Short and midterm, that's super easy. Long term, that gets a little more complicated. Make sure they're labeled. I did make sure mine were labeled, but once the mixed fuel's gone, how to mix more fuel. Those are all things that could be easily added into a user manual. Gardens and plants and trees, right? We can automate it where you can. Ideally, if you're not though, then that needs to be added in your manual until you can automate is where you can. A real good way to cover, especially if you have a larger piece of property, is having a property map or diagram of like where some of these, like your trees that you've planted that require, usually the first couple of years, they highly recommend during the summer months giving them, a certain amount of water, 5 to 10 gallons a week or something like that. You'd have to look that up, but the more established trees, typically, unless you're like, in a drought or something like that, it's not 100% necessary. Or said the variables of geographical locations of where you're located in the United States or around the world, this could change. This is for you, as I mentioned. And then, other things, you got ponds or water features or things like that, how to maintain those. If they got pumps and whatnot associated with them, those systems can of course fail. If you don't have, spare pump on the shelf or whatever, things get complicated. So ways to get, to finish up here, ways to get after this, what I envision is a like a binder, with some actual printed information. You could start off with a simple binder with especially your basic stuff, your equipment and things like that, with the user manuals. But you kind of hand it out to someone and they're like, oh my gosh, look at all these manuals, because there's information in those manuals maybe they don't need. So taking that and only taking that information out of the user manuals or what from your own experience and adding that into a text document with pictures and links to videos, right? You can have a private playlist, on YouTube or other platforms, and they could have access and they could go see these kind of how-to videos that you've created for that specific piece of equipment or item, whatever it may be. That's where I see this going. I really want to, like I said, start this conversation. I think it's a great idea, because I hear it all the time when people are like, man, I can't leave because I got X, Y, or Z animals, or my pets, and that can be a part of this too. Also remember, you can check me out on my other social media platforms, Odyssey, MeWe, and Float. Those links are all down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and have a great week. See you next week.